First of all, I would like to thank Professor Anugrah and Professor Navreet for giving me a chance to share my views on this particular topic, traditional architecture. Uh, Actually, traditional architecture is a very broad term which has many components in it. So one can call traditional architecture is as a vernacular architecture, but I will not be talking on the vernacular architecture. Another traditional architecture is basically an ancient Indian architecture which has been practiced since ages. So I will be mostly talking on this particular aspect, that how the ancient Indian architects deal with the buildings, their way of dealing and all those things. So right away I will start sharing my screen. So I'll be mostly talking on understanding layers in ancient Indian traditional architecture. This ancient Indian traditional architecture is most popularly nowadays known as Vastu Shastra. Now, as I was told that most of the participants in this particular webinar will be architects and students of architecture. So, as a professional or as a student of architecture, uh, you are already studying or studied the 5-year degree course. So, I will also like to expose you to this ancient Indian traditional architecture, which is popularly known as Vastu Shastra. Now, before we start with this existence of architectural tradition in our nation is actually evident from two major phenomena. One is the built examples of architectural excellence as we see all over the country in the terms of temples, palaces, mosques, and many other buildings. Second is we can also think in terms of the presence of architectural literature in the form of treatises in Sanskrit and regional languages of different geographic locations and edges. Hundreds and hundreds of these ancient Indian architectural treatises are available, which actually deals with the topic of architecture and planning. So I'll be mostly talking on uh, these two aspects. Before we go further, this is a very important thing that I would like to start with is the chaos, because the word itself, Vastu Shastra, is very ambiguous, and it is considered as a multiple meaning word. So if you ask the common public, they say it is mystical, superstitious, ritualistic, that makes or breaks the life. Well, it's more or less true. That's what we think about it. But the actual meaning of Vastu Shastra, if you ask from the common public, it varies from person to person. Somebody says that it's like a deity. We need to pray it. Somebody considers it sarcastically, like a joke. Oh, Vastu. Somebody says it's a disease. Somebody take it as a joke. Somebody calls it as a mystery. And some persons like me also take it as a branch of knowledge. Some also takes it as a branch of as a fashion. Vastu. Oh, I have done the Vastu of my house. They say it with pride. Whereas if we come to the architects and planners, that is actually the professionals I'm talking about, what do they say? They say, what is all this? Where does it fit into the architectural planning that we have learned that we have learned? Whatever we have learned in the 5-year PR's course of architecture, where does it fit in? Whereas some of the architects also say that we must follow. But most of them thinks that it is not the part of architecture and we should not follow it. And it is more or less true. So because of this, what happens is there is conflict and ego clashes between so-called Vastu Shastris, client, and architects. So when architects talks about the physical planning of the building, the space requirement, the circulation, proximity of the spaces and all those things. Whereas the Vastu Shastri, when it starts talking about the mystical energies and the flow of energies, and ask the architect to change the design. An architect is not willing to change the design because he knows that if he changes the design as per the Vastu Shastri, the circulation will be improper and lot of inconvenience is to be faced by the client. So there is a conflict between the client, architect, and the Vastu Shastri, and ultimately what happens is client don't know, and client is always worried that what is going to happen to his dream building. He can't want to ignore Vastu Shastri, nor he wanted to ignore the architect. So there is always a conflict, and because of this, this ego, ultimately, client being the supreme authority who is paying the fees to the architect, architect has to make some compromises based on what Vastu Shastri says. Now, why this chaos? Sorry, why this chaos has happened? Why these Vastu Shastris, which always talks about mystic energies, took a leading role? I think it is because of the drawback of our educational system. Uh, because of this drawback, these Vastu Shastris started coming into picture and they are taking the leading role. Uh, it is irony that Indian architects are aware of the principles and nomenclature of ancient Western architecture rather than ancient Indian architecture. That means that uh, an architect may be able to identify Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian orders of the columns with detailed proportions and all that. But on to the right, if I say Vishnu Kanta, Brahma Kanta, and Indra Kanta, these are again the classical orders of Indian architecture, much more detailed with proportions, names, spaces, and everything. But we are unable to identify them. So we consider Vastu Shastra as ritualistic. But actually, it is not. It is as good as our Western architecture. I will give you some of the examples to prove that it is more or less an architecture and not a mystery. Another example. As an architect, we must be aware about golden means and modular proportions. But if I say Chanda, Vikalpa, Abhasha, and Jati, these are also the proportions of the building which are described. See, this is square, Chanda, Vikalpa, in terms of width and some width plus 1, width plus 2, and width plus 3. So this is again the proportions, but we don't know these proportions. Third, again, example of the proportions. Jaya, Adbhuta, Sarvakarmika, these are the proportions of buildings which describe the width and the height. Width and the height ratio, 6:9, 5:8, and so on. So we are not aware of this. We are only aware of golden mean and modular proportions. So another example, in case of town planning, we know the principles of town planning as neighborhood planning, garden cities, three magnet theory. But are we aware about the detailed plans given or described in our ancient Indian treatises as Dandaka, Sarvatrobhadra, Nandavarth, in which each and every detail related to water supply, sanitation, roadways, open spaces, built-up spaces, and even dimensions of roads are also given. But the problem is that all these is not taught to us. And this is what is the irony, that we consider Vastu Shastra as ritualistic. The problem is those Vastu Shastras who are talking about those mystical things are actually pandits. They are not technical persons. So even if they go through the treatise, they will not be able to understand what Dandaka, Sarvotrabhadra, Nandavat means. So they only talk about that very small portion which is given, which is also there in the Vastu Shastra as mystic. But They only talk about that small portion, and we don't know about the larger portion. So there is a chaos. So the objective of this is to make you aware that uh, our ancient Indian treatises are not mystic. They are purely and purely scientific. Now let us come to word Vastu, which is considered as a mystery. Vastu is actually derived from a small word. Vastu means matter. And the Vastu is act of modifying the matter into usual form. And that's why it is called as a Vastu. And the treatise which is written on modifying the matter is called as Vastu Shastra. So once we modify the matter into a usable form, it can be into a cities, towns, house, temple, villages, furniture, vehicles, sculpture, any form we convert a matter which is usable. That comes in the domain of Vastu Shastra. So it is actually the relationship between dweller, dwelling, and the. I can say that in modern terminology, Vastu is equivalent to architecture and planning that we have studied in our 5-year degree course. Let us take a hypothesis. If we think in context of medical sciences, let us consider Western, Western, and architecture planning, again a Western system of education. If we consider allopathy as a architecture and planning, then we have to consider yoga and Ayurveda as a Vastu, that is Indian system of planning. Now, after decades of research, yoga and Ayurveda are accepted even in the Western countries as a method of healthcare. And doctors also started practicing them. So, with this hypothesis, we go further and say that because Ayurveda and Yoga and even Vastu Shastra have the common roots and Vedic thoughts, we can also hypothesize that Vastu will be proved right after proper validation through research. And research is still not done because any tree having different fruits, if my tree is good, that means two fruits of the same tree are good, it is more likely that the third fruit will also be good. Based on this hypothesis, I am going a little further. Now the philosophy of ancient Indian architecture. In Indian philosophy, human body is considered as a miniature universe. The ancient Indian text of Ayurveda says, as is the atom, so is the universe. As is the human body, so is the cosmic body. As is the human mind, so is the cosmic mind. As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. Now, in the end of my lecture, I will also prove that, or I am not the right person to prove it, but I will also demonstrate or illustrate that this particular verse is also very scientific and can be proven in terms of physics. But that will be the last part of the lecture. Now, based on this, Vastu Shastra says that as is the human body, so is the cosmic body. As is the human body, so is the body of the building. As is the body of the building, so is the cosmic body. As is the building plan, so is the cosmic plan. In very simple words, they say that human body is a miniature cosmos, and because our residences are also the part of cosmos and the human body lives in, so it has to be a little cosmos. So Vastu Shastra considers building structure to be in harmony with man and nature. We say that it is a custom made space in harmony with dweller. It is dependent, it's dependent and the now the important thing is our Western thought of design is space centric. We talk about space. Whereas the Indian system of designing is human centric, because human is the main thing, space comes second. So once design are human centric, they say that. Now why the harmony with man and nature is required? We all wear clothes, and we all wear clothes based on our body proportions. So we can assume that these clothes are our extension of our body. If the cloth does not fit to the size, they are disproportionate, they are not maintained uh, for for our size, we are definitely going to feel discomfort. You can imagine that if one arm of your shirt is little tighter and another arm of your shirt is little longer, how much amount of discomfort you will feel. Although you can wear it, you will perform all your, nothing harm is going to happen, but still there will be some kind of a discomfort because of this disproportions. Similarly, Vastu Shastra says that residences are also the extension of our body. Hence, it has to be in proportion with our human body for getting bliss, for comfortable living. The hypothesis is same. While wearing disproportionate clothes, you will be able to perform all your duties. Nothing is going to harm you, but still there will be some kind of a discomfort. Whereas they say that if your residences are considered as extension of your body and is in proportion to your human body, there will be much more comfort. Although if it is not, there will be some kind of a discomfort. And they also says that if the frequency of your body, if the frequency of your residence, if the frequency of the cosmos matches, there will be a resonance. That means there will be huge amount of positive vibrations. And this is also proved in physics. Now, let us, before we go to the Vastu Shastra and the details which we are dealing with, let us look at the present system of present system of designing the buildings. How do we, because you all are architects and students of architecture, you might have designed a single residence. Let us say how. While designing any building, we talk about aesthetics, we talk about proportions, circulations, space requirements, we talk about climate, we talk about sun movement, we talk about energy, we talk about management principles, services, construction technology, building materials, structure, joinery, and much more. So all these details are already described as we study in the present system. In ancient Indian treatises, hundreds and hundreds of verses are written on these. Even the joinery detail, the details of the trusses, the details of the roofs, building materials, how to make a brick, joinery including your mortise joint, tenon joints, all those. Only the names are different. They are Indian names. Uh, Services, water supply, sanitation, each and every detail is there. And based on all these details which we study, including aesthetics and proportions, I had already given you the examples of proportions. This is just examples. There are few hundred proportions given in Indian ancient treatises that if you follow these proportions, your building will not look ugly. So coming back, so what I conclude is that Western system of designing is purely materialistic and physical, which also exists in our ancient Indian treatise. Now, I will not go into the detail of this particular aspect of building design. Uh, as I say, our building structures consists of or is designed as a human body. So before we go further, let us quickly look at the human body. What human body is? Human body is basically consists of a physical body which has proportions. It has a mental body, that means your thoughts. It has a spiritual body that is based on your horoscope, the day on which you were born. So all these three are the part of your body. So how all these physical, mental, and spiritual body is taken care of while designing the buildings as per ancient Indian system, apart from the first one, which I have already taken care of. So I have conceptualized the 6 layers that while designing a building, our ancient Indian treatises takes care of 6 different layers. First is the physical space planning, which I will not talk much. You know how to design a building. All those details, all those subjects which you have studied in your 5-year BArch degree course, except RCC, exist in ancient Indian treatises in the same detail, maybe much more. So I will now onwards talk about physical body, that is body proportions, mental body, that is your thought process, spiritual body, that is based on your horoscope. Now this is what is little ritualistic, or you may believe it or you may not, but some some persons believe it. So even if you remove this particular layer, although it is also very scientific, but even if you remove this particular layer, you have to consider layer 5 and layer 6, that the geometry of your residence, the geometry of your body, and the geometry of your cosmos has to be in sync for greater resonance. And the last layer consisting is of considering the space as a fourth dimension. Fourth dimension is after length, breadth, and height, the fourth dimension is time. Now, I will not be able to explain that how it is done and what are the detailed processes involved into it, but I will just give you a brief that how all these layers are taken care of, so that you also start believing that the portion that Vastu Shastri tells us is all ritualistic, which is a very small part of the total treatises. There are about 10,000 verses in Mansara, one of the treatises, and uh, out of which more than 70% is purely technical. Now coming to the second layer, physical body proportions. Now, medical sciences and other sciences have already established that, just a moment, that uh, our body has certain proportions, and these proportions are almost fixed. Not only our body, but our internal organs are also in some proportions. So if we study these proportions, we will be able to find the proportions of the body. The fine art, the students of fine art are able to do it much better than us. But these are just images which I have taken it from the internet, just to convince you that how proportion system works on our body. Now, these proportions in the ancient Indian treatises are considered with reference to our uh, dimension of middle digit of the middle finger of the right hand, which I have shown into the right hand side. That dimension is taken, and that is called as the angula. And that is approximately equal to the 3/4 inch. But this is the basic dimension for designing any of the building, and which will take care of your body proportions to the building proportions. How? Now, based on this, another level of measurement is designed, which is called as a hast. Hast is this from the top to the bottom. And on an average, if you look at it, 1 hasta is equal to 24 angula. So while taking these dimensions are actually measured, and then a scale is prepared. A scale is prepared, which is called as a hast, which I have shown below, in which there are 8 divisions, 8 divisions, and for, and they are marked with angula, and even the divisions of angula are also marked. That is half angula, 1/3 angula, and 1/4 angula. That means you can measure with the precision of few mm. Now, whatever measurements are taken on the site, rather than using a fixed system of feet, inches, or meters, or they used a relative system of measurement. And that relative is with a human being. So if they are making a house for me, my dimensions are taken, a scale is prepared, and then all the measurements are taken with this particular dimension. So this is the thing in which our human body proportions are taken care of. That means that whatever they make will be in sync with our human body proportions. Very scientific way of doing it, and there is nothing wrong in it. Now, coming to mental body system. Here I would like to give you certain examples that uh, if you watch a concert on a TV, and if you watch a concert live, what is the difference that you find? Actor is same, voice is same, ambience, what you see there and what you see on the TV is same, but still we enjoy the live concert most. Think of it. Another example. If you go to a market, will you purchase a popcorn? I think no. While watching a movie, you prefer to purchase a popcorn. Why? You are ready to pay 100 rupees for a small pack of popcorn. Why? Even if you are not hungry. So let us recall some of the concepts of our mental body that we have. Our body has 5 senses. That is ear, skin, eye, tongue, nose. And these are the sense organs and our senses. So the main thing is, if our all 5 senses are pleased, that means I will be able to enjoy any event or anything most if all my 5 senses are pleased. They are happy. So once you go to the live concert, your ambience, your touch of the seat, your vision, the smell all around, all these things makes all your senses happy. So you enjoy that particular most while watching a movie. Your ear, sound, vision, but taste is not there. So just to have the taste, to have the enjoyment, you actually enjoy the movie, the popcorns most during the movies. So if we somehow able to design those houses which please our all the 5 senses, we will be able to enjoy our houses most. This is how our mental body system is taken care of. Now, because these 5 senses are mental in the sense that vision, I might like a particular color, whereas another person might like a different color. My tastes are different, your tastes are different. I might like a jazz music, whereas you might like rap or any other sound. So based on the characteristics of the person, the design of the house changes, the detailing of the house changes, the choices of colors changes, the proportions changes. I might like, based on my mentality, I might like the proportions which are square, but somebody else might like the proportions which are rectangular. So based on that particular mentality is judged, and then the buildings are designed. Broadly, don't go by the varnas which I have written there. Broadly, ancient Indian treatises divides the human beings in four different categories. They had given the name as Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Remove them. Just put them A, B, C, and D. They are not by caste. They are not by your profession. They are just by the characteristics. For example, Brahman is a person whose mentality is inclined towards learning, whose mentality is inclined towards learning knowledge, and has an affection with money. Definitely, everybody has, but is not greedy. Whereas Kshatri is a person of a, there are various details. There are many, there are few 60 verses which explain the characteristics of this. They don't call them as persons. Remove them. Just put A, B, C, and D. Kshatri is a person who is who who feel pride in protecting others, who feel pride in protecting others, who enjoys fighting on all this. So similarly, all these. So not going by these details, but broadly speaking. So Vastu Shastra first uh, ascertain your personality, which personality you belong to. Then based on that, the proportions, the design, the requirements, everything gets changed, and you get a custom made house with your proportions and with your mentality. Now this is the also this you have also experienced while if you have taken any ayurvedic treatment or Unani treatment. The same disease, same medicines is used for different diseases, or the same disease is treated with different medicines because the character of the person changes, the likings of the person changes. So this is how the mental body is taken care of. I have to be fast. Now this is the third part of the ancient Indian system. Now you can call it little ritualistic also because I don't know whether you believe in Jyotish Vigyan or not, but I think it is established. Uh, you know that each and every body affects each and every other body with a m1 m2 upon t square. So at the time of your birth, the major planets which are near, that is sun, the moon, affects most. So based on that, your horoscope is prepared. So even if you are not interested in, you can ignore this particular layer of system. So ancient Indian architects considered dwelling unit as a living organism. So all these buildings, every now this is also proved in science that matter is a living organism. It's not dead. Uh, so the ancient Indian architects performed various detailed mathematical calculations based on the uh, nakshatra in which you were born. That means based on the location of sun and moon at the time of your birth. They say that this sun and moon, their location with respect to the with respect to the various nakshatra. That means in which constellation they are, gives you the details about your personality that and much more things. So how these formulas are prepared, how mathematical they are, and how they are applied. I am just going to give you the glimpses of it. Uh, this is the just an example. If you take the printout of your horoscope, particular point, you get some of the details like this, which I have given on the right hand side, in which I am only interested in this, in which particular constellation I was born. That means in which particular constellation the sun and the moon were. Once we are able to know that, then I have to perform detailed mathematical calculations. Do not look at the left side of it, that is I, Var, Vyay, Ansh, Dravya, Nakshatra. Just consider them A, B, C, D. Because sometimes if I talk about names, you consider them as ritualistic. So I just want to replace these names by A, B, C, D. So what is done is, I have written a word pinned. So pinned is nothing but a mathematical composition of area and perimeter of your plot and your built up space. So once you design the building, the area perimeter, see how technical it is. The area and perimeter of this plot is multiplied and divided in various aspects to calculate our variables A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and so on. It requires a detailed mathematical calculation. That means area multiplied by 9 divided by 8, and whatever remainder is left will be called as X. And any Pandit is not able to perform these calculations, so they don't do it. So once these calculations are made and then they are checked with the constellation in which you are born, they are matched. The problem is once you match them, this is what is the Excel table which I have to use to calculate them. It is the calculations are very, very complex. Once you match them, out of those A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, let us say, few will match and few will not. So again, you have to either increase or decrease the area or perimeter of your building and optimize them till they all get matched. So they say that once all of them get matched with the constellation in which you were born, your house is in sync with your spiritual body also. So doing all these calculations and optimization is a complex process and is purely mathematical and technical. So you can try it. I don't know because it is related with Jyotish. So I don't know whether you believe it or not. But I say that at this particular stage, I say that why don't we try it? There is nothing wrong in trying it. So once all these are made, that means we have taken care of our physical body by proportions, we have taken care of mental body by our senses, and we have taken care of the spiritual body by considering the constellation of birth. Now let us go to the next layer. Next layer is harmonizing mind, body, and soul with the cosmic geometry. Now, what is a cosmic geometry? Uh, you might have heard of two things which are very popular in Hindi. I don't know whether you have heard of it. That is Saur Mandal and Tara Mandal. Similarly, this is a sort of a mandal. Our cosmos, our cosmos is is a very large and very complex. Now, it is really difficult to represent the complete cosmos in the form of a picture, or it is very difficult to describe the cosmos in words. So abstractions are required. Whenever the things are very complex, we try to put it in abstract form. So this is what is the grid is an abstract of the complete cosmos in which they have represented the complete cosmos in an abstract form, and we call it as a mandala. Now, once we have converted the complete cosmos in an abstract form, and we also says that as is the human body, so is the cosmic body. So what is done is, over this abstract form, a human body is overlapped, and then what we call as Vastu Purush Mandal. Vastu Purush Mandal, the cosmic man, the cosmic whole. The cosmic whole, this Vastu Purush Mandal is made of, and then this geometry is refined, and this geometry comes out like this. Now, again, coming to the various details, as you know that our human body has marmas and shiras. Now, what are those marmas? Marmas are actually the vital points in our body. If our vital points are injured, if our vital points are injured, it becomes a threat to our life. We feel intense more pain if we hurt on these vital points. Now, these vital points and shiras are nerves and veins. Shiras are nerves and veins. Now, if we just look at the philosophy of acupressure, acupuncture, naturopathy, naturotherapy, in which we go for the massage, and which treats our all the ailments of the body. It basically works on marmas and shiras. That means the vital points and nerves and veins through which the energy flows, because of which we are alive. Right? So all these marmas and shiras are further mapped. All these marmas, considering it as a human being, all these marmas and shiras are further mapped on the same geometry, and you get the figure, something which is given on the left hand side. Now, as there is energy flow within our body which makes us alive, so all the flow of those energies based on the marmas and shiras are also mapped on. And all these shiras and the flow of energy is mapped on the cosmos. And finally, we get something like this, in which there is a overall cosmic geometry in an abstract form. There is a Vastu Purush Mandal, then there is Marmas and Shiras and the vital points, and everything is mapped. Now, this is a pure representation of cosmos based on the hypothesis which ancient Indian text says, as is the human body, as is the cosmos. So on this abstract becomes the basis of designing of our buildings based on ancient Indian texts. Now, if we design these buildings based on these particular geometry, then we can say that our our human body, our buildings, and the cosmos, their geometry, their proportions, their flow of energies, everything is same. That means the way cosmos is, the way our human body is, and the same way our buildings are. So the frequency of cosmos, your residence, or your human body matches, and there is a resonance once the frequency matches. So there is a lot of positive vibes at that particular area. This is what is an assumption. And how to do it? This is just an example that based on these grids you make the plan, but I am not going to how it is to be done. But this is the next layer which our ancient Indian text takes care of. So with the help of this, I had taken care of the first layer, that is purely Western, talks about proportions, aesthetics, geometry, design, spaces and all. Second layer, our body proportions by using the human scale, again very scientific. Third is mental body by using our taste, sense organs, again very scientific. Then comes this spiritual body. I take it as scientific, but if you don't believe it, if you don't believe in it, okay, let us ignore it. But there is nothing wrong because it has a lot of mathematical and pure geometrical calculations involved. And then comes the sync with cosmos. This is again a pure, very scientific, the way the cosmos works and the way our building should all be in the same geometry. This is what is we have learned from it. Now, let us come to some of the logics that why should we believe it. So before we go to why we should not believe it, I will tell you the reasons that why we should not believe it. We should not believe it because it is old, because it is outdated technology, because it is written in Sanskrit, because it is the domain of Pandits, because it is old fashioned, because it is the knowledge of villagers. And there are so many reasons not to believe it. But now let us also look some of the reasons why to believe it. Sorry. First, let us have some logic. Whenever we make any investigation, whether the event in court or in somewhere else, whether the event has happened or not, whether it's true or not, what people are saying are correct or not, what we do, we normally call different people at different point of time and ask them the same thing. If everybody repeats the same thing, we assume that this particular event has happened. Similarly, if we look at the ancient Indian texts written thousands of years back by different sages in different periods of time and at different locations, you find that they are all more or less same except some regional variations. There was no flights, there was no ways to communicate. So based on this logic, that different, even I am not only talking about those texts which are related to architecture and planning. I am saying all those texts which are related to even medical science, even your way of living life. So various texts which are available in ancient India, they are all in perfect sync. Ayurveda, that is naturopathy, and yoga, which is also being considered scientific nowadays by the Western community. The text, these texts are also in sync with them. Their philosophy is in sync with them. So if I say when hundreds and hundreds of texts, even on different subjects, talks about the same thing, written by different people at different times, at different locations, then we can consider it as correct. Now, coming to some science. Uh, this is again, although I need not to say that our ancient Indian architecture is pure science, but because the image of this particular subject has been distorted by various pundits, so I need to uh, certify that this is also scientific. And the persons of repute mark them as scientific. In the 20th century, when quantum theory and theory of relativity, these are the two main theories which change the way we look at the science, forces us to see the world very much in the way a Hindu see it, to describe the phenomena of sub-microscopic world and the interaction of subatomic particles which all matter is made of. This is said by Heisenberg, who is a German who is a German physicist. I think we all know about Niels Bohr. We all know about Niels Bohr, who has given the structure of the atom. He says that once they have discovered the subatomic particles, they say that the great extension of our experience in recent years has brought to light the insufficiency of our simple mechanical conceptions, and as a consequence has shaken the foundation on which the customary interpretation of observation was based. That means whatever science we were following before the discovery of subatomic particles, the foundations of that science has been shaken. And the same is also said by the Einstein, because he is the one who is the father of theory of relativity. Now, what is modern physics? The physics that we have studied from our class first to maybe class 11th or 12th is basically, we call it as a Newtonian physics. That means it is based on the Newton's principle, the very great scientist Newton we are talking about, Newton's laws of motion, Newton's theory, Newton's this, Newton's that, in which we tend to divide. In the Newtonian world, we tend to divide the objects into a smaller groups, phenomena into a smaller phenomena, and we try to evaluate and work the way they works. So Newtonian physics is the disintegration of complete world into small pockets, and that is what is we study. We study motion, we study earth, we study sun, we study. Have we ever studied cosmos? No. We study sun, we study Jupiter, we study gravity, we study magnetism, we study electricity, and so on, dividing it into various phases and all those. So once the modern physics started, that means after the development of theory of relativity and quantum theory shattered the principles of Newtonian world, there is a complete new world which emerges. According to the theory of relativity, the space is not three dimension. It is a space, it is four dimension with a space time continuum. Hence, we cannot talk about space without time, or we cannot talk about time without space. Now, as a physical being, as a human being, let us say, uh, can you think of our space as a four dimension? It is very difficult to. Uh, in Newtonian world, we have a three-dimensional space that is absolute space, x, y, and z coordinates. Whereas time is absolute, which flows, which actually flows like this from one point to another point, past, present, and future. This is what is the Newtonian world. Whereas the theory of relativity, which is the modern physics invented by Einstein, says that no, there is no 3D space. Space has to be talked in respect with time. And this is the tenet that we are following in our ancient Indian building design. And that is why we have a lot of muhurtas, times associated with the building. Quantum theory. Let us look at the quantum theory. Quantum theory made it clear that particles are nothing like solid objects, but subatomic units of matter, which are abstract entities having dual aspect of particle and wave. As a human being, as a normal being, I say, if I says or try to explain you this particular fact in words, it is impossible. Imagine that, I am physical here. I am composed of atoms, physical. Atom is composed of neutron, proton, electron, again physical, right? And you say that the atomic particles are not particles, they are waves. That means what I am actually made up of, waves. So what I say is once we go to the higher systems of knowledge, once we go to the higher systems of knowledge, that higher systems cannot be explained in normal language. They have to be explained in terms of mathematical formula, which is an abstraction. It is an abstract equation which describes the quantum theory. It is the abstract equation which describes the universe. So abstraction is a must. And once this abstraction is also followed in describing, the way is different. At that time, they have defined it in the form of a figure. Here you are defining it in the form of a formula. So abstractions is a must. So further, if I it quantum theory also reveals that universe is one. That means oneness of the universe and the observer as a part of the process. An observer as a part of the process. That means that all the designs, all the experiments which are performed at subatomic level, all the designs which are performed at subatomic level, observer cannot just observe the process. He has to be the part of the process. Then only he will be able to complete the experiment. Now, the same principle is followed in our ancient Indian traditions, that our designs are human centric. It is not space centric. So, I just wanted to clarify that because we are not taught with the modern physics, we are not aware about the modern physics, we are not aware about the detailed principles of theory of relativity and quantum theory. Instead, we have studied Newtonian physics. So it is difficult for us to imagine the details or the depth which is provided in our ancient Indian system of designing buildings. Let's go further. In the ordinary life, we are not aware of all the things, but divide the world into separate objects and events. This division is, of course, useful and necessary to cope up with everyday environment, but it is not fundamental feature of reality. The picture of interconnected cosmic web, which emerges from the modern atomic physics, has been used extensively in East to convey the mystical experience of nature. The idea of participation instead of observation is formulated in modern physics, but it is an idea which is well known to the student of mysticism. So, whatever modern physics teaches us, whatever our eminent scientists like Einstein, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, all physicists of atomic science, they started believing in Indian science. They started referring to our ancient Indian knowledge. But because we are unaware of these facts, we are immature, we have not studied these physics, and we still believe on Newtonian physics, so we consider them as ritualistic, and we have not also studied. So these are the basic reasons which we need to believe it, and this is the final slide that I generally show. This is by Fritjof Capra, again a physicist. In our recent time, physicists has used the most advanced technology to portray the patterns of cosmic dance. Bubble chambered photographs, interacting particles when overlapped. That means what they have done is they have exploded the subatomic particles in a chamber, and the photographs of the movements of that particular particles are taken. And when they are overlapped with the Shiva dance, they found it similar. This is what is again written by Fritjof Capra and physicist. So slowly and slowly, our modern science I'm talking about, not the Newtonian science. When our modern science is leading towards the way our ancient Indian knowledge is, so why should we also start looking, at least looking at it, not denouncing it as bad? Not denounce. Although a lot of myths and a lot of chaos is created by these Vastu Shastris because they are non-technical. So we must also start learning this as a part of the curriculum, in which in design we can learn about the various proportions. In construction, we can learn about the technology in all those things. And just to sum up, I want to say that before accepting or denying the validity of certain ideas, we must first try and understand it. We should not brand something good, bad, or ugly without going into the details. And also, we should not denounce something bad just because it is old. So I conclude my lecture by saying that I have given you an insight that you can also look or go through some of our ancient Indian texts. Just do not denounce them as bad because the chaos is already created by Vastu Shastris. Now, this is our time that we should also tell them that this is not ritualists, it is purely scientific and geometry. Thank you. Now, can we have some questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for a very enlightening talk. Sir, I can see two questions on the screen. Architect Santosh Sharma is asking that Please let us know that how Vastu Shastra can be optimistically used in contemporary practice, where the client needs Vastu-based location plan, but the elevation should be modern facade and building by law restriction. So,
Uh, Mr. Sharma, uh, I told you, I can see some of the chats here. I
yes, sir.
told you Vastu Shastra does not give you any design solutions. Number one. Number two, it does not provide you any design constraints. As I have told you, it is an approach that we have learned in our 5-year design process. Uh, Vastu Shastri is, that's what actually I wanted to tell you. You have asked a very relevant question. Vastu Shastri talks about location of northeast, southwest, this. It is there, but it is not required. It was there. Uh, it is actually based on the movement of the sun. The activity should be located in a way that the way sun moves, the way activity should also move with it. But it is not required nowadays. If you do it, well and good. Otherwise, I told you these 5 principles. Which constraints I have asked you? No constraints. Design the building the way you want. Design the facade the way you want. If you are using proportions of golden ratio, if you are using root 2 proportions, root 3 proportions, why don't you use the proportions which are given in the Vastu Shastra for aesthetics? There is no harm. Where is the constraint? So what I wanted to say is, what Vastu Shastri says, don't believe into it. He only says what he understood out of it. Otherwise, it is the designing process is explained with no constraints at all. Whether you make your building with RCC, with brick, with steel, with glass, Vastu doesn't comes in picture.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Sir, there is another question by architect Santosh himself. How can we get Vastu Shastra in book format like other architectural books, for example, Newford, TSS, etc.?
Uh, Actually, till now, this particular subject is considered in the domain of Vastu Shastris and Pandits. So you actually don't find any books on it. I will tell you my experience, why I started this, why I started reading this. So although I am working as a professor, I also used to do the practice. So while doing a practice, when Vastu Shastri comes to me and asks me to change my design, it really hurts. He talks about all that nonsense to change the bedroom from one side to another and this side to that side, and the circulation becomes total chaos. So I started searches on internet the way we normally do. Then also I found that whatever Vastu Shastri says is available on the internet. Northeast, southwest, higher, lower, weight, and all these things. So once I came across with a person who is having this particular treatise. That is, I started with the Samarang and Sutradhara. Then I had gone through Mansara, Mayamatam, and all those things. These are very voluminous treatise. So it deals with all kind of buildings which are there. So I only concentrated, honestly, I only concentrated on the residential part because uh, religious building, palaces, forts, I am not concerned with. So once to understand that, I had gone to the philosophy. Then I talked the various Vastu Shastris. I talked the various persons who have actually read the treatise, not gone by the net. So they told me first to understand the philosophy and then you think of designing a building. They told me that uh, it is not the design. Vastu Shastra is not the design solution. If somebody is saying that you put it into the northwest or southeast, that means he is wrong. Vastu Shastra never gives you any solution. It is a philosophy through which you should approach your design. Based on the location, based on the person, everything changes. So your question is very relevant that there are no books available, although some literature is made available by some of the researchers now. I have also prepared some of the lectures or lecture series to understand the basic concepts of Vastu Shastra. The only drawback is you found is the names, as I told you, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, because these names are distorted by the society. You also found the names as Indra, Varun. Let us not go to the names. Let us consider A, B, C, D, X, Y. Then everything will be fine. So, because that time those names were used, the calendar that we follow today, that is January, February, March, and April, March, April, May, and June are the names based on the Roman and Greek gods. But we don't know. Because we don't know, we take it for granted that they are modern. They are based on the names of the Greek god. But being an Indian, because we know these names as a name of God, we take it as a primitive. So just remove the names, put them X, Y, and Z, and you will find that this is fantastic. Regarding book, there are books. One is Mansara by P.K. Acharya, which is an English translation. There is another book by Mayammatam by Adam Hardy, I think. I think by Adam Hardy. And there are one is Samrangan Sutradhara by D.N. Shukla. These books are available. But the problem again is they are just the translation from Sanskrit to English or Sanskrit to Hindi and not written by the architects. So there is a sort of a gap you find. If you read that particular text, let us say Paduka. Paduka is Chappal, right? But they have written it Paduka, but actually that Paduka refers to the plinth. So as an architect, you should know that if that word is written, that in building context, it is the plinth of the building which we consider. But the translator has translated as a Paduka. So some sort of a gap is there, but I think in times to come, slowly, it will be taken care of. कहीं ना कुछ चीज बन के आ ही जाएगी, कोई ना कोई लिख ही देगा. मैं भी कोशिश कर रहा हूँ लिखने की, करने की, पर it takes a lot of time to understand. First you need to understand, you need to prove actually that it is scientific. That takes a lot of time. Any other questions?
No, sir. There was a question by Ms. Neha Agarwal which concerned the same number of books which you have just suggested. So, sir, yes, there is a new question, sir. And I declare to the audience that because of the time restriction, this happens to be the last question that we are taking up. Sir, it says that has there been an effort from the Council of Architecture to get these texts or Vastu Shastra books to bring these into availability? And the second question is the history of architecture book we had during our bachelor's talks very little about the Vastu Shastra, proportion based on the Vastu Purusha Mandal. But as this science is native to us, why is it still not being put into our curriculum as a subject so that the people know what the actual science is all about?
I will tell you the reason. As an architect during the 5-year BR degree course, which history books you have studied? Bannister Fletcher, Percy Brown, Havels, what else? Building construction by Mackay. What else? Climatology by Koensberger. All foreign author books, all British, American, German books. So this curriculum, which was designed originally by British architects, when JJ School of Architecture was made as the first institute, and University of Roorkee started the diploma in civil engineering. When this curriculum was actually designed by the Britishers. So they have incorporated what they have, what books they have, and that practice was still followed. And we study the same thing. Although I can confidently say that Mac is obsolete, but still we study with the same book. I say that um, history books written, even the Hindu history, the Muslim history, the Mughal history is written by the Britishers. Where are the books which are written by the Indian authors in such a detail? You won't find any books. So, Council of Architecture should take a step or should encourage the architects to write the books on history. Number one. Number two, design principles. We also study from the foreign authors, like you said, uh, Newfort's, TSS, and all those things, again written by the foreign authors. Because Indian authors had never written a book in local and regional languages. It is because, to be honest, after graduating as a architect, doing 5-year degree course, I consider it as a pride saying as architect. I have studied the course in English. I am well educated. So why should I read all those texts which are primitive, which are immature? So we don't go towards that particular area. And that is where we lack. But I think the new education policy has taken care of, and something is going to come very soon. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Yogesh sir, for a very, very, very wonderful and enriching session. It is always a delight to hear about these often overlooked aspects about architecture, about our traditional knowledge system, which is so profound and which has got so many insights upon a lot of features, which certainly can be very helpful for designing not only the existing structures, but also probably the future structures. And with the academicians like you, I'm very sure, sir, that within a few years' time, just like what you have said, under your guidance and supervision, I'm sure a lot would be done in this regard about the traditional architectural treaties of India.